Code of conduct is originally the version 1 was very specific to the EU and very GDPR centric, I think. Version 2 tried to go a bit more international with this stuff. A number of nations around the world have got privacy policies that are equivalent to or accepted by Europe as being acceptable for GDPR type purposes. Many nations don't. Australia is one of them. So I was talking to PAL, I think, at the previous APAN meeting and at TechX about how we can actually implement the Code of Conduct version 2 for our subscribers. And I think the main point that you need to do is you have to have somebody stand up as a registrar to be able to say this organization is meeting the requirements of Code of Conduct. So we're actually putting together some policies, a bit of a framework for the AAF to be able to be the place that our service providers come to when a organization or a service wants to do Code of Conduct. It's got pretty much the same look and feel as the other ND categories when it comes to technical stuff. Haven't really dug into this one too much detail, but we'll have a quick squiz. Let's have a look at if there's semantics, registration criteria, and this is a bit more extensive around being part of the European Economic Union or part of GDPR 45 and 46, which we aren't, or the get out of free card. Or from only receiving data from organizations where safeguards have been agreed. So that's the thing. We have to be the person that verifies that the appropriate safeguards have been agreed to by the service provider. It's got some metadata requirements, privacy URL, and must resolve privacy notice, which is available to be browsed. So it must be publicly accessible. It's got a display name. And it is recommended that the display name is no longer than 140 characters in length. And I think that's just for display reasons. MDUI elements must be at least in English, but they can have alternate versions. Attribute requirements. Service provider is responsible for defining its metadata, what attributes are necessary for enabling the service or access to the service. So in this case, the metadata has to include information about what attributes are required for the service or optional for the service. If it doesn't do that, then those attributes won't be passed. Using a pairwise ID and the subject ID is necessary. If the service provider is requiring other attributes than the identified above, it must provide a requested attribute element in its metadata. The requested element must include the optional is required equals true to indicate the attribute is necessary. So you can say it's not necessary or is necessary, but you need to indicate either way. Again, another piece of another ND category chunk needs to be added to the service provider that wants this stuff. For identity providers, it's again the entity category is supported type option. And again, there's a bunch of information available to help you determine how to deploy that particular entity category. And that's the end of the entity category stuff. I expect there'll be more in the future, but and there'll be more versions or newer versions of entity categories. As we move forward, as more problems arise that need to be resolved. So I'm going to skip the Jagger stuff and we will jump into the baseline activities, baseline expectations. So getting on board with baseline expectations. So this session, we're going to have a look at what are the baseline expectations defined by REFEDS. We'll dive in a bit deeper into the specifics for IDPs and for service providers, and then have a quick look at what Federation operators need to be doing to meet these expectations. They're not too onerous, they just need you to actually do some work to get them done. So what are baseline expectations? And this is a REFEDS thing. So, REFEDS baseline expectations are a common set of expectations of all participating organizations to establish a baseline of trust. There's that magic word again, trust. Everything's trust, 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 trust in identity federations. This presentation will introduce the expectations, provide some history of their development, and highlight their evolutionary nature. Okay. So a set of high-level statements that will evolve over time. So it's a moving target. It's a lifetime activity. It's not a set and forget type thing. So you need to be continually monitoring and updating, and your federation operator should be telling you if a change is occurring and how you need to implement that change with regards to the baseline. Every federation needs to define their own implementation of baseline due to its cultural, regulatory, and technical and economic differences to achieve the same goals and outcomes. I know that the In-Common Federation tend to be way ahead in this space, and they've actually defined some additional stuff for their baseline, for their IDPs and service providers. And I expect some of that will eventually flow into the REFEDS baseline at some point in the future. We're in the AF are a bit behind in this space, even though I think we already meet the baseline expectations. We haven't actually gone through a formal process to check everybody off, but that's something that is in train at the moment. So done that. It's about IDPs, service providers, federation operators, all the players in the federation space. They're not fixed-term targets, but long-term commitments, and to improve the technical and policy landscape of federations. Overall, the aim is to continually improve the interoperation of federation components, IDPs and SPs, resulting in continually improving user experience and thus improving research and collaboration outcomes. So making the trust better, making stuff work better is going to have a positive effect on researchers when they access services. It's really disappointing for a researcher when they go to a service, try to log in, and it fails because some part of the technology is different, attributes aren't being provided appropriately, or some other aspect of the federation has failed them. And this is what baseline expectations is trying to improve, just so that researchers aren't bothered by the technology getting in their way. They can just get in and do their stuff. And some of it's very important stuff that they do. So the problems we're trying to solve, it's nebulous. It's improving trust, improving technical integrity, improving quality of metadata, and improving maturity. Some of that's around the research and scholarships ND categories helps in that space, and the other ND categories I talked about this morning also help in that space. More specifically, it's about trying to get everyone using research and scholarship and certify. And that's not a problem for us in the AF because everybody who we have in Edugain is doing both of those things. And we want to expand that so they're also doing the pseudo-anonymous, anonymous, and other ND categories that are appropriate for our particular nation. Changing the rules we have. So basically, doing more to repair problems, doing increasing and changing rule changes behavior is policy pointless. Okay. Maybe, but processes backed by policy can change behavior. Do we want to look at something like just the federation operators or for all NDs as well? So at the moment, it's everybody who plays in the federation space will be covered by these particular, this baseline stuff. And what are the actions and controls that we're trying to put in place? So let's have a look at some of the detail. So In Common has had its baseline expectations for a while. It's got its own set. There's a link that's available here. I won't actually dive into that because I spend too much time in the weeds. But REFEDS Baseline uses theirs as sort of a base to kickstart the baseline federations for the global community. But it is also developed with a community consensus approach or process, and it's based on the standard way that many of the documents, processes, and policies have been developed by REFEDS, and that it's a community working group, comes up with a proposal, goes through a consensus and a review process, and eventually is voted on and becomes policy or a guideline. Processes, community dispute resolution processes, and maintaining baselines. So In Common have those things. These things you'll need to think about how you implement them within your own federation. And they also provide a wiki, which has, we'll have a quick look at their wiki because it's pretty interesting. It has stats on uptake and guides for helpful information for their members. Hopefully this is going to go, but here we go. So this is their main wiki page. They've got a big note saying you need to meet the baseline expectations to now. And then they have a graph of how many over time the uptake of baseline expectations in their federation. A little bit bigger. So at the moment, they have 95% of organizations adhering to it, 98% of their IDPs, 98% of their service providers. That's a pretty good number. IDPs with URLs, 98%. Again, 98% seems to be the big number here for certified compliant IDPs and SPs. So they've done a lot of work to make sure all of their IDPs, or as many as they can get done, are meeting those requirements that they have. And they've got some other pretty graphs, again showing that uptake. So this is useful stuff to have to know how far along the path you have got to go and how far you've actually proceeded. The In Common guys tend to work in batches of, they do a project to actually lift everybody at the same time as far as possible. Baseline in Australia, we've reviewed the requirements. We've actually made changes to our federation rules to support the requirements, and that's been approved by our board. We're running an awareness campaign. That means I'm going out and visiting as many universities as I can and talking to their IDP folk and their service providers at their universities as part of our IDP enhancement program. That means I get some more travel around the country. We extend our, it's going to extend to our 1-year compliance activity. So we have a compliance activity where all our members have to reinstate that they are compliant with our federation rules. Because a lot of this is covered by our federation rules, they'll automatically be covering a lot of stuff off at baseline, but whatever is not covered by baseline will be added to our federation compliance activity. And we're developing our own SAML and OIDC profiles. Not sure what that means. I wrote it down, but I can't remember what I wrote it for. Oh, I remember, yep. We don't have in the AAF a technical profiling document to say what's in metadata and what should be there, how it should look, how it should feel, what color it should be. And that's on my plate to do that. And we'll also have a similar one for OIDC. So it's basically a standards document on what your metadata should look like. Once we have that standards document developed, it's easy to say, does your metadata match that? And if not, how do we make it so it does match it? It ensures things like information URLs are part of the thing. Security contacts are part of your metadata. Privacy URLs are part of your metadata. And that will then inform our developers on what they need to include in our new federation management tools. So if it's in the policy, if it's in the profile, then we need to add it as an option or a function of the federation management tool to be able to populate the metadata appropriately. Because as we'll get down, one of the things in the baseline profile is expectations is that your metadata is correct and current and up to date and accurate. We can't know if it's accurate unless there's some measure or profile to verify that it is accurate against. Plan to enhance to support monitoring compliance with the baseline. So I have put in a request for our tooling to be able to do some technical tests to verify that an IDP or an SP is compliant. Things like doing using the SSL labs to check that the endpoints of an IDP are secure and meeting at least an A type response from that tool. And we'll have local extensions to keep ahead of the game, similar to what the US Federation has. They've got additional components to their baseline. I expect we'll have additional components to our baseline. I know they've got must have an error URL in IDP's metadata in their baseline. So things like that, we will sort of try and be ahead of the game so that when changes come to the REFEDS baseline activity, we'll already be able to tick the box saying we're doing them. So REFEDS baseline, I've read that before, list of required operational behaviours. Met by satisfying the requirements specific to the entity's role. They are not fixed targets, but long-term commitments, and they apply regardless of the particular federation technology or software or that are in use, and are commitments of the organisation on whose behalf they are operated. And they're just basically check boxes. You do this, yes, great. You do this, yes. And if you get all the ticks green, then you're good to go with being compliant with baseline expectations. And within the Australian Access Federation, we want that to be a yearly sort of review that is done to ensure that people are keeping up to speed with this stuff. Next page. There are no next pages. Right, so that's a bit of an overview of what baseline expectations are. So let's have a look at baseline expectations for identity providers and service providers. So in this presentation, we'll explore the baseline expectations for IDPs and SPs to gain a clearer understanding of the requirements that need to be met. And we'll highlight where activities of your federation will help your members meet these expectations. So implementation. Define your own implementation of baseline expectations. This presentation is just going to outline what we're trying to do in Australia to meeting these. And in common, as I said, have their own way of doing it. They've already really well documented what they need their IDPs, SPs, and themselves to do. It's up to you to work through this with your subscribers. You can ask for help, but it's going to be a nation by nation type activity to get it done. So the first thing we've done, as I mentioned, is changing our federation rules. So we had one of our project managers go through baseline expectations and our rules together and identified a number of areas that could be improved that would help meet those baseline expectations just by signing off to being part of the federation. And we have our new federation manager tool, and one of the features that I wanted to have is to be able to flag technical issues. If something technically is inconsistent with baseline, a warning or a message will appear on there against their IDP or SP entry in our tool, and they'll get notified by email that you're not compliant, you're not doing this, you're whatever has gone wrong, let's get in and fix it. So being very proactive about making sure that people are keeping up to date with or up to speed with their baseline expectations. So for our identity providers, we have 5 things that they need to do. And the first 2, I think we can just tick off by being part of the Federation in the AAF. So your identity provider is operated with the organisational level authority. So to join the Federation as an IDP, it needs to be signed off. The joining process has to be signed off by a person who has signing authority at the university to say, we want to be part of the Federation, we want to run an IDP in your Federation. So the CIO signs a thing saying, we're happy to participate. I think that covers us for is operated with organisational level authority because they've said they want to participate and it's one of their signing authority people. And your IDP is trusted enough to be used to for access to your own systems. Some of our IDPs actually use their Shibboleth or Federation IDP to access for everything in their organisation. Many don't, but many also have Azure, which their Shibboleth IDP plugs into. So being in that stack and being run by their IT departments, not by the research department or somebody else, it's actually run centrally by their the IT departments. I think we also get the tick in the box for that one without having to actually do much. The next one is about publishing contact information for your IDP. So I think I'd go into these in more detail. Yep. Publishing contact information for your identity provider and responding in a timely fashion. So for this one, we've made a change to the rules to deal with a little bit that was missing, but most of our Federation rules already cover that. And I'll dig a bit deeper into what that actually means shortly. Number 4 is you apply security practices to protect your users' information, safeguard transactions integrity, and ensure timely incident response. So again, we've made some minor changes to our Federation rules to ensure that people are complying with that, and we're requiring all of our IDPs and to implement certify, and we'll be signaling that in their metadata as they join EduGain. And finally, ensure that the metadata is registered in the Federation is complete, accurate, and up to date. So again, our Federation rules has a piece about making sure that data is correct, and we will be using our Federation management tools to actually verify that against the policy that's still to be written about what is compliant and accurate metadata for our Federation. So just going into a bit more detail, we'll skip 1 and 2 because we've already ticked them off. And this is the presentation I'm actually taking to each of our IDPs and going through this with them in this sort of gory detail as we talk through a whole raft of issues. So publish contact information for your IDP and respond in a timely fashion to operational issues. And because I'm using this presentation with our existing IDP customers, we're taking what were our old Federation rules. So our old Federation rules are in yellow, and Rule 6.2.7 says it keeps contact information required by the Federation up to date and with changes being made within 5 working days. And that's how we're trying through policy to try and ensure that our contact information with our IDPs is up to date. That rule's actually changing. It's only a subtle change. It's changing to say within 5 business days. Yay. Nobody actually does this. Nobody keeps it up to date within 5 days, but at least if we do hassle and we've got something to stand on saying, well, why haven't you done that? The next one is it observes good practice in relation to configuration, operation, and security of the system. And that's been subtly changed again to operation and security of its information systems. So it's a more broader, you're doing good security practices for all of your IT systems or your information systems that sit in your under your control. And a new rule is added, which is pretty much taking some of the details out of the baseline activities. And this one is saying it will promptly respond to any operational issues that may impact the Federation, any subscriber or end user, connected system or data, and must notify the Federation operator of operational issues in writing within 2 business days of first becoming aware of the operational issue, and provide regular updates in its management of the operational issues. So that's just really formalizing that you should be telling us that bad stuff's happening. And that's, even though it's a rule that hasn't been published out yet to our Federation operators, we're already seeing IDPs doing that. We had an incident a few months back where one of our research facilities informed us that they potentially had a ransomware attack, or the start of a ransomware attack on one of their servers. It turned out not to be. It was more just information had been captured and was available on the dark web, the evil dark web. But they notified us really quickly. We responded to them really quickly, and it's been sort of sorted out. So it was a bit of a nothing incident, but it was good to see that the IDP was very proactive in letting us know that that was a potential issue for them. For identity providers, IPO4, you apply security practices to protect users' information, safeguard transaction integrity, and ensure timely incident response. And we have a whole bunch of stuff about security in our Federation rules, but it still wasn't complete enough. And again, 6.1.4, which is about promptly notifying us of incidents, has been added. With this one, we also want certified compliance for all of our IDPs and service providers. At the moment, we're only asking that for people who join EduGain, but eventually that will be everybody across the whole Federation. And all service providers, all IDP endpoints are secure with current trustworthy transport layer encryption at an A rating at SSL Labs. So that's something that we can actually automate and have our toolings sort of flag if there are issues with the SSL layer of our infrastructure. And for 5, ensure that the metadata registered in the Federation is complete, accurate, and up to date. So our original rules, and these stay. So it will observe good practice in relationship to exchange of and processing of any data in obtaining and managing the domain name service, digital certificates, private keys used by the system. We also have our Federation registry tool be able to detect any anomalies or bad metadata once we have our what do we call it? Our SAML policy, or SAML SAML stuff defined, and the AF Web single sign-on technology profile, which is a piece of work I'm working on. We'll define what metadata components are required, and so our tooling will then verify that those required pieces are actually part of an IDP's metadata. So that's what we're doing for our IDPs. There's a different set of rules for our service providers, and again we've got 6 rules here. You will ensure that controls are in place to protect users' privacy in the service. So our Federation rules cover that one. You will not share information received from identity providers with third parties without relevant notification, and information is stored only whilst necessary for operational purposes. And again, we have that in our rules. It's not exactly those words, but as a mapping that we can sort of show that our Federation rules cover that. You'll publish contact information and respond in a timely fashion to operational issues. Again, our Federation rules there. You apply security patches or practices to protect user information. This is pretty much the same as IDPs. And again, certify Federation rules to deal with that one. The next one's about your metadata. So we have our rules and our federation tools to cover that. And you publish requirements for user information required to access your service and ensure these requirements are appropriate and respect privacy. And again, our federation rules will cover that because we'll be asking for people to enter their privacy statements into the tooling, which will then be published out into metadata. So again, we've got all this same set of stuff. We've got the rules that apply for each of these controls. Subscriber, when acting in capacity as a subscriber to the Federation, will comply with any applicable legislation regarding data protection and privacy, including without limitations are privacy laws and data encryption laws. So that's in our Federation rules. Our service providers need to comply with that, which then means they're actually complying with protecting users' privacy in the service. For two, will not share information received from identity providers. We have a whole raft of rules in our Federation rules that deal with privacy. Yep, I'm not going to read all that stuff, but as you can see, there's plenty of dot points that they need to sign off that they're actually doing good privacy practice with regards to personal information. Publish contact information and respond in a timely fashion. This is exactly the same as what we had for IDPs. Keeps contact information up to date, good practice in relation to configuration, and responds to any operational issues in a timely fashion. And number 4, you apply security practices to protect user information, safeguard transactions integrity, and ensure timely incident response. Pretty much the same as for IDPs. We've got a bunch of rules that help IDPs or service providers conform to that. We want service providers to also do certify across the whole Federation. And we also have IDP service, so that should actually say SP service endpoints are secure with current trustworthy transport layer encryption. Number 5, ensure your metadata is registered, complete, and accurate. Again, the same as for IDPs. We've got a statement in our Federation rules. We've got our coming technology profile, and we'll have our tooling to actually verify that that's happening. And publish requirements for any user information required to access your service. So the service provider must not disclose third-party stuff, but we're also extending our Federation manager to include the privacy URL and other related information to ensure that this is happening. So our tooling and our rules working together are making sure that we're actually being compliant with the baseline expectations. So our approach has been, modifying the AF rules to align with the baseline expectations, a publicity campaign with our members. So we've got an enhancement program that's sort of a bit of a leading the charge with the one-on-one meetings. And it's interesting going to these one-on-one meetings because we find out a whole lot of information about our IDPs when we go and visit them face-to-face rather than doing it on Zoom. It's much easier to get them to open up about themselves and some of the bad stuff they do and help them understand that they need to improve their game. But they also have a very good opportunity to talk to us and find out what we're doing and how we can help them to improve their game as well. We will be developing a bunch of website content. We're making a bunch of improvements to our Federation manager to automate the verification of some parts of the expectation, and we will be updating our yearly compliance so that they can tick another box saying that they think they're compliant with our baseline expectations. But all of this will take time, and it's going to happen. So that's it for IDPs and service providers. So you guys are mainly IDPs in the room, or IDP administrators. Is there any questions from you about baseline expectations, and do you think you can actually achieve meeting these expectations for your identity providers? I'll take it as silence means yes, you can do it. Again, if you do have issues or difficulties, you can always reach out to the REFEDS emailing lists. You can reach out to us on the APAN Slack channels and other spaces to do this. It's a question for you, Nicole, about compliance, because I think we've spoken about this before, of a sort of regular, how do we check that this stuff's happening?
No, yeah. So REFEDS itself doesn't look at compliance for this one. It's just a framework we provide out. We expect compliance to happen in operational environments. Obviously, Baseline has requirements for identity providers, service providers, as you've just been through, but also for the Federation operators. What we're hoping to do is to build in a compliance check for Federation operators within EduGain, because EduGain is an operational environment. That's a more sensible place to do it. And that's one of the recommendations from the EduGain Futures Working Group, which is one of the things that kicked off the governance changes that Casper talked about yesterday. We are also looking at bringing in an EduGain reporting tool. It's slowly moving out of beta, and we're hoping to make that available to all Federation operators so they can get this really lovely overview of compliance within their own Federation, but also look at their own compliance. Our plan is to use that tool to do an annual compliance check with the Federation operators. But we wanted to get the governance changes done as the priority, so all of this can then be improved under the new organizational model.
Yep. Yeah, I think the yearly compliance is a great thing to have in your Federation, not just because it makes sure that your people are stating that they're up to date with their rules or compliant with the rules, but it also reminds them that they're still part of the Federation. It's a great marketing opportunity to remind the CIOs that they've actually got a commitment to the Federation and participating in the Federation. So next, before lunch, we'll quickly have a look at what's required for our Federation operators. That's us. I see Depthy's joined us in the back there, and she's the Federation operator for Sri Lanka, or one of the people involved in it. So baseline for Federation operators, this is slightly different to IDPs and service providers. So not just limited to IDPs and SPs, but also the Federation operators, and we'll have a look at the details of that. Federation operators have 6 things to deal with. You focus on trustworthiness of Federation as a primary objective and are transparent about your efforts. You publish your contact information and respond in timely fashion to operational issues. You apply security practices to Federation operations, ensure timely incident response. You follow good practice to ensure authentic, accurate, and interoperable metadata to enable secure, trustworthy Federation transactions. You implement a support framework that improves trustworthiness and scalable use of Federation, and promote an adoption by members and other participants. And you collaborate with other organizations to promote realization of baseline expectations nationally and internationally. So what does that mean in detail? Trustworthiness of Federation is a primary objective, and you're transparent about such efforts. So for us, our key thing is our vision and our mission, and that's a very high-level document, but within there are words like trust and security and all sorts of stuff that we're trying to. They're very short statements, but having one of those really sets the framework for the operation of the Federation. With regards to transparency, we have regular updates and reports, and communicate out our plans into the future. So we have an annual report which says how we've done in the past. year. We have a strategic and a business plan about where we're going to into the future. So that's really about being transparent with our users and letting them know what's coming their way and what they should be expecting out of the Federation. We also have news articles and we run events to get people in to talk about Federation. We did run surveys until recently. We've now changed that and we now have a different process where we have, can't recall what the wording for it is, but we just have basically a round table where you invite people in and ask them how we're doing on various aspects and let them have their say as well. And it's all, again, part of gathering lots and lots of feedback from our community. We value our community, we want their input, and we spend a lot of time getting their input to help us in setting our strategic and business plans into the future. So I think for our Federation, we tick that box fairly easily. For the second one, publish contact information and respond in a timely fashion to operation issues. So we're responsible for publishing contact information into the metadata. So our Federation management tool deals with that one. And our Federation operator contact information is clearly visible and obvious on our website. We also have a support desk. We have notifications about operational issues, and we have change management processes in place within the AAF. Then has a lot of notifications going out to let people know that when things are changing. Our Federation management tool is in a continual state of flux. We're continually improving it and adding new features. Each time we add a major feature, we have a change process that wraps around that, and we have a whole notification process to our subscribers to say, hey, this new feature is coming your way. There will be a slight outage as we introduce this feature, but this feature will give you X, Y, and Z. So I think we do that one pretty well. Federation Operator 3, we apply security practices to Federation operations and ensure timely incident response. And as a Federation operator, we strongly participate in Certify. What do we do? No, we don't do that. We do more than that. We also participate on the EduGain security group, working group. We haven't met for a while. Davide's involved for running that one, isn't he? Yeah, I should ping him and say we should have a gathering sometime. And we're also planning to, or we're sending someone off to view the In Common security activity that's coming up soon. And we'll be running a similar security activity in the near future. So, and obviously all our software and all that other stuff, we're actually trying to improve that over time. Follow good practices to ensure authentic, accurate, and interoperable metadata. So we have a Federation management tool, so we're not actually hand editing any metadata. We're having our tooling generate the metadata for us. We're putting in place the SAML and OIDC profiles, and we ensure all our keys are at least 2048 bits in length. So nothing shorter than that, and stuff that's longer than that's probably going to be needed into the future. So tick in that one. Number 5, we implement support framework that improves trustworthiness and scalable use of the Federation, promote adoption by members and other participants. So we're doing baseline, we're doing certify, verify, various entity categories that we've enabled. We're looking at doing, well, not single factor anymore, but multi-factor and the REFEDS assurance framework and others as they arrive. So we're implementing and supporting those frameworks as they come out. And you collaborate with other organizations to promote the realization of baseline expectations nationally and internationally. So we collaborate and promote, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm doing FO6. So get out and do it. Yeah, get to it. Just get to it. Make it happen. Set your expectations for your IDPs and SPs as soon as possible. The sooner you get them thinking about this stuff, the sooner you'll get the job done. Set up a program of work, see what others are doing, steal their ideas, jump on the chats and find out what others are doing and get ideas from them. This will improve the likelihood of your researchers accessing services seamlessly and will also increase the trust in your federation. And that be it. I'm now out of content for this morning. Any questions on baseline expectations? Yeah. The other one. Thank you.
Oh,
it's better.
So I'm confused with the REFEDS assurance framework and this baseline expectation. So is there some relation between REFEDS assurance framework and baseline expectation?
So I'm not sure I understand the question. Try again.
Yeah. Is there some relation between REFEDS assurance framework and the baseline expectation?
Not really, no. The only thing that would be in there is implemented support frameworks. So for a federation operator, to implement or to be doing F05, you're implementing some of the support frameworks that are being generated or provided by REFEDS. So that's where doing REFEDS assurance will assist in doing that one. But Nicole has also other words of wisdom.
Well, may not wisdom. So I think the easiest way to think about it is assurance is more about the integrity of the organization that runs the IDP. So it's all about their internal processes and practices across the board. Whereas within the baseline expectations, it's focused on the integrity of our specific infrastructure. So yes, there are things IDPs have to do, but they're very broad and high level. Whereas the insurance profile gets really detailed about how you have to configure specific systems and how your organization vets users, for example. So it's compatible, but at a slightly different focus.
Thank you.
So for new federations, this might seem a bit overwhelming, but don't be scared off by it. Dive in feet first. As I say, if you have any questions or issues, we all know Nicole's email address, or support at REFEDS, I think it is it? And there's also the Slack channels, there's email groups, there's other mechanisms to get support on this stuff. And there's a lot of information available on the REFEDS wiki about how to set this stuff up. So any other questions?
Well, maybe not a question, but on FO6, I think it's worthwhile mentioning that, well, collaborate and promote. A good example of this is SWAMIT, the Swedish Federation. They updated their policies last year, I think, and it took them a long time to make everything work. But just before they published it, they shared it as well in Edugain, just to ask, well, just to inform everyone, but also to ask, well, did we miss something obvious? Because their policy was quite old. It was their first update since, well, in 10 years or something like that. And I think that is a really good practice, because things might work for you, but we'll get you into, well, details that are not compatible with the educating space. And there are so many people out there that are willing to review and help you out on this. And this is maybe a more general comment. Also, as Terry says, make use of all these people, make use of their knowledge. It's out there. It's literally for free, and they're happy to help. So that's more something to emphasize.
Okay, thanks for that.
And then the
Checking the
guide
program now.
for every country per ASEAN. And but the duty of this is to follow the fire globally. Like if there's a lot in Canada, it's got Canada. Look closely to Canada or Levy state. You know, like moving Hawaii, you make the graph, the map, and to show the emission, and we can use this.
Yes,
Like
work.
for free, hopefully you can download. You want to study, but it's a 41.
So at 1:30, just after 12, we're back here for Federation updates. I've had a few requests come in via email. So we'll be getting a update from the Malaysian Federation, and I've had another one via Hoover from Thailand. I want to update on their Edgerome updates. So